seja muito bem-vindo ao Violino Didático. Eu sou o Jean de Oliveira e hoje nós temos um convidado muito especial, a very special guest, Augustin Hadelich. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. Thanks so much for accepting the interview, and thank you, Carlo, for arranging this. My first question is, how did you start in violin?
Yeah, I started when I was 5 years old. And it started because I have two older brothers and they were playing cello and piano, and I was hearing them already play for several years in the house, and I really wanted to make music as well. But I didn't know what a violin was. My parents just gave me a violin and said, you can play this, and yes, that's how it started.
And how did they start to study music?
Well, they were not musicians, but my father was an amateur cellist and amateur pianist. His sister was a violinist, so there was some music in the family, some musical interest. And my father and my brothers, we played at home, kind of for fun. So I didn't start with the goal of becoming a violinist. So that kind of happened later, that I became more and more serious about it.
Do you remember when this takes some seriously? Now I want to be a professional violinist, a professional musician.
I don't know, I'm not sure. I think by the time I was 12, 13, 14, I knew I wanted to be a musician. But I don't know exactly when it happened. But I think the first time that I saw really great violin playing live changed how I thought of the violin. Because when I first started, we didn't have a lot of recordings, and this was before YouTube. So it wasn't like now where you can see all these great violinists perform live. When you search on YouTube, you can see so many great performances. Back then, it really was not so easy unless you went to a place and to a concert and saw it. So when I was 8 years old, I saw the Italian violinist Uto Ughi, and great violinist, and he was giving these master classes, and I watched all the master classes, and I had never heard somebody sound so beautiful before on the violin, like very lyrical, like a singer. Mm-hmm. And this became my, it changed how I thought of the violin. Suddenly I realized that it is really can be a very beautiful voice.
In your honest opinion, what is the best and the worst about being a soloist musician?
No, it's hard to say. It's a very exciting life in terms of the performances, being on stage in front of a lot of people and feeling that energy of a big hall filled with people. It's really exciting and exhilarating. And the music that I play, we have lots of great music written for the violin, and so it's very beautiful music. So I feel very lucky that I get to spend my life this way. The worst part is probably that, unfortunately, much of my time is not spent playing the violin. When I wanted to become a violinist, I thought all you have to do is practice the violin and perform the violin, and that's the part that I enjoy. But what's not so fun is all of the planning, people asking for programs, booking flights, sitting on airplanes for a long time, and all these other things should take up actually more time.
And you always travel with your family?
No, not always. Some when I can, but not always. Some of the trips that I might take. So I live in New York City. Some of the trips that I take to Europe might be very short, might be just 3-4 days, just fly there, play a concert, come back. But when it is a slightly longer trip and more fun, then I try to travel. Yeah, that's my way.
Do you have a clear vision about how did you get here? Out of practicing, right people, right moments, right places. What is the key moments to get here?
So it would take a long time to kind of mention all this. It's a very, very long process. And when I was growing up and I saw violinists perform, I didn't realize it does take a very long time to develop a career. I thought it was enough to win a competition, for example, and then you get a career. It doesn't quite happen this way. But if I think back, it often started because of musicians who wanted to play with me, or conductors who liked to work with me, who took me to different orchestras where they were conducting. And then I won a competition in Indianapolis, which also I got a number of concerts through which I met more conductors. And basically, it's a process where the network of musicians who know you're playing and hope you can gradually grow, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So many orchestras will actually decide who the conductor is first for a week of concerts, and then the soloist. So oftentimes the conductor decides, and this is something that has driven my career. That whenever there's a conductor that likes to collaborate with me and I like to collaborate with them, then it can lead to additional concerts. So it is a very it is a long process. So I would say actually that after the competition, that's actually when the real, almost like when the real work or the real test starts, because every place I go, I want to be invited back. You know? And, so there are other factors at play. It's not only how well you play, it's also you have to be friendly to people and treat people well and be communicative with the other musicians, that people enjoy playing with you. So playing a lot of chamber music was something that helped me a lot with that, because you communicate and listen, you learn to listen in a different way. And this is very much the same even when you play a concerto, that the way you listen to the orchestra and react to them matters very much, and it makes the other musicians comfortable with playing with you. And also, there's sometimes things happen that are kind of random or lucky. Yeah. Well, like us, we're sitting here together, right? It's kind of like almost a coincidence. So many things like that have happened as well. So I don't know. You know, one thing that's very important is that when you're a developing musician and you look at different soloists, you shouldn't compare yourself to them too much, because actually each one of these violinists had a very different path to end up where they are. So there's not one formula that fits everyone. Some people won competitions. Some people never did competitions. Maybe they had a big career because certain conductors really liked to work with them and traveled with them, and took them to new places, or there were other breakthroughs that made them famous. You know.
And was it a natural thing, or you wanted to be a soloist?
I always, when I was growing up and I went to concerts and I saw violinists perform, it felt like I want to do that. It looked so glamorous. It's not quite as glamorous as that, actually, you know. But it was something that's that I had aspired to.
How many times did you practice in college, and how many times do you practice today?
Yeah, good question. So when I went to Juilliard for 3 years, and starting with my second year, I practiced really a lot, 6 or 7 hours a day, because I felt that my first year was a bit more lazy, and my second year I started practicing very much because I felt that I had to kind of put in this amount of time. And it's very interesting that suddenly, when over a period of weeks and months you spend so much time playing, that certain things suddenly become easier. You have breakthroughs, you suddenly understand why something's not working or why something's working. So it helped me very much. But these days I don't practice quite as much. But and it depends a little bit how busy I am. So for example, this morning I was kind of resting because last night I also had a performance. But early this week I might have played a few hours a day, 2-3 hours a day to practice Sibelius again. So it's not quite as much, but I think I have become more efficient with practicing. Because back when I was a student, I was wasting a lot of time. I was sometimes not knowing how to fix something, and I was repeating it. And now with a bit more experience, I would know what to do, and I would be a bit quicker at improving things. I think when I grew up, when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, I was practicing a lot also. It was probably 6 hours, 7 hours a day. And then later, when I was a teenager, I was quite lazy sometimes. So it's not essential that it has to be 6 hours for your whole life. That sounds kind of scary. Yeah. But if you have a period of time, half a year or a year, where you really just focus like crazy on it, and you really spend so much time and your whole life is about that, you might find that certain things suddenly, you have a breakthrough. Suddenly something is easier, you feel comfortable you have a comfort on the violin that you don't have otherwise. So this is definitely something that happened with me, because if I listen to recordings of me when I was a student, when I first came to Juilliard, it was maybe similar to how I play today, but I often did not quite have the same kind of control over the instruments, and or certain things would go wrong, or I wasn't quite able to do things under pressure in a performance as well yet. So I think the intensity with which I worked.
And did you get nervous to get in the stage?
Yeah, I've always been nervous at the start of almost every performance. And actually I realized this is something that will never quite change. It's quite normal. But the thing that gets better is that you get better at handling the nervousness. So when I was a student, I found it very difficult. I wasn't used to it, and I was really quite scared sometimes. And now when I feel the same way, but I have more confidence and I'm used to it and I know what to do. And I think the most important thing actually to do is to keep breathing and not to allow yourself to kind of freeze and get stuck and stop breathing. And then because with every second that passes, it gets worse if you do that. You have to keep breathing and I don't know, think happy thoughts, think about the emotional side of the music. And
when you are playing, so what do you think about the musical notes, the dynamics?
In a performance, I try to if I play something like Sibelius, I try to think of the music lyrically as though I'm singing it, and focus on the character and the emotional side. This is in a performance, but when I practice, I am more analytical and kind of listen to myself and think about if there's anything I don't like, and then try to change things. But I think I play my best performances when I can switch off my mind and experience the music in a more musical way. Not think about mistakes or what I think was good or what wasn't good. Because I think that's what you do in practice. In a performance, it's better to let go.
If you had only 1 hour a day, every day, what did you practice?
It doesn't seem like a lot. I think what you focus on what you decide to focus on with practicing depends on what your next goal is. So in my case, next week I'm playing a different piece. So I'm taking out this piece and that kind of thing. What are the things I need to do to get this piece ready again? And I start practicing. And so I would spend that hour probably on this piece. I also warm up for some minutes when I start playing to get my fingers warm, which is important not to get injured.
What is your warm-ups today?
The warm-ups, I usually actually start with passages from the piece I'm about to play, but not the really hard technical ones, but maybe the slower ones, maybe something just to get the hand going. So maybe slow passages, more lyrical passages, to get the hand going.
And to work your technical skills, do you practice in the concert? Are you gonna play or separately?
I think that depends. When I was growing up, then sometimes there were situations where certain things, if I felt, but I'm really having trouble with this one technique, so let me find a piece that has a lot of that, so I can really practice it. This can be a way to tackle certain things, like I'm having trouble with staccato, but let's take out this piece that has a lot of staccato, something like that. But nowadays I will mostly practice in the piece that I am playing. But I think it makes sense if you feel that there's something you have a struggle with that's not working, then find some music that has a lot of that, so you can really figure it out. And yeah.
What is your major advice today for people who want to be musicians, or for people who want to be better musicians?
I think it's important, if you want to become a professional musician, it's important that you do it for the right reason. So if you love music so much that you're sure that you want to spend your life doing it, you will be happy, no matter if you succeed or not, then that's great. But it's better not to go on this path only thinking about your career, only thinking about this goal, because
music is the goal.
I think the music is the goal. One thing that actually helped me realize this very much was chamber music, because when you play with other musicians, you get away from, especially in the violin world, sometimes there's a competitive mindset, and you think, which violinists are better than others and all this stuff. You get away from that and enjoy making music with other people. And there's so much great music out there that you can enjoy in chamber music. And it is a different way of playing with other people in communication, following, leading, and listening. So that's it was something that actually made me realize how much I like music. When I was just practicing, sometimes, practicing is not fun often. I don't enjoy it even now. But it's when I'm out there playing with other people, that's the part that I enjoy.
I already did this question off camera, but I want to know, and I think every Brazilian student wants to know, how did you meet Carmelo? Carmelo is a huge star here in Brazil.
Yeah.
Every violinist know him. How did you meet?
Well, it was through, it was a very random series of events. It's slightly embarrassing because it all started because about 12 years ago, or 13 years ago, I was living in New York and just starting my career, and my manager said, I think you should take dance lessons because it will help how you look on stage and how you move on stage, and so you should take tango lessons. And I started taking tango lessons with a tango violinist in New York called Leonardo Suarez Paz, and he knew through a friend there was a connection to Carmelo, and Carmelo heard about me, and I gave a master class at the school where he teaches in Albuquerque, and met him and his friend and his students. So that's how it quite happened. But I don't dance the tango anymore, but actually it was very helpful, I have to say, because it was certainly to play any music that has tango in it, but also I think that dancing is actually helpful for a musician to feel the rhythm in that way. To understand, for example, that certain rhythms, when you have to dance them, take time, because it takes time for the body to move in certain ways. And that actually helped thinking about this aspect of dance helps in many other styles.
What's the question you always want to answer and no one never asks?
Well, I'll tell you the questions that I get the most sometimes maybe not the best question. So I get asked a lot how many hours I practice, or what my favorite pieces, or things like that. Actually, you've asked some really great questions. I think sometimes I get questions that are a bit vague and very difficult to answer. If somebody asks, how can I play better, or how can I play more in tune, or things like this, then I can't really give an answer unless I've seen them play or something. But when people have very specific questions, very very detailed, a very specific question, I think those are the best questions. So an example might be a question about something in a specific piece. Those I always find very easy to answer and interesting to talk about.
Adagio from first sonata, it's E flat or E natural?
Well, this is of course, it's definitely E flat, and I'm 100% sure of that, because I love this question. In the recapitulation, when it comes back in C minor, it is an A flat, and I think harmonically it should be the same. And plus, it would be very unusual in Bach style for it to be E natural. So even though it's unusual for Bach to make a mistake like this in his manuscript, I think it's E flat. I mean, I've seen arguments online, and yeah, no, it's a big thing now, but yes. So see, those are the kinds of questions I love to answer.
Specific ones.
Yeah, and it's interesting to. I mean, this one I've heard about, but sometimes somebody comes up with a new question that I hadn't thought about, and it's not easy to answer, but then I start thinking about it, and it's very interesting for me as well.
And for who wants to get in touch with you, hear more things, what is your social medias?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Augustin Hadelich, and also a Facebook page. And I don't always respond to messages right away. I try, but it takes a little bit.
And you can hear him on Spotify. Do you have a final message for musicians, professional, young one?
Well, I hope that you never lose your love of music. Many people start playing because they're interested in music. They're very passionate about it, and it's easy when you're working a lot to lose that passion, and it's important to always find it again and remember why you do it, and do it for the right reasons.
Se você gostou desse vídeo, não esqueça de clicar aqui embaixo no gostei. Siga Dr. Hadelich nas redes sociais, então estou deixando todas aqui na descrição, todas aqui na página. Muito obrigado por assistir e até mais.